you start your day. You set your tone. You're the master of either a good day or a bad one. You're the master of a terrific week or that of a terrible one. It's all in your mindset. Do you start your day off positively or do you start it off in a dreadful tone? I've shared this personal story several times, how I used to wake up when I worked in an industry that made me extremely unhappy. Every single morning I'd say to myself that I was stuck. Instead of being blessed to see another day, my mind was set to hopeless. Are you setting a positive tone for each day? How are you setting the tone for your life in general? This is a time where you can think positively. Everything is in your mindset. Right now, I have a wonderful 7-day motivational entitled The Go Love Yourself Daily Crown Jewels, the 7-Day Motivational. Head over to www.goqueen.com and download your free copy of the 7-Day Motivational Map. You can also go to www.goqueen.com and download the full color PDF 7-Day Motivational Guide. This guide is also available on Amazon.com. So go ahead, change your mindset, and remember, every single day you can go love yourself and have a winner's mindset. Go Queen! So we're recording a new episode of the Key Chat, and as anyone knows who's listened to past episodes, I love having authors on the show, especially my awesome Black queens that are taking the world by storm and grabbing that pen and writing some fierce books. So right now I have a New Orleans bred author, and her name is Miss Kesh Nicole, and she has like a nice catalog of books. So I'm going to give her the floor to introduce herself, and we're going to talk about her awesome books. How you doing this morning?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So just before we start talking about your books, just give everyone just your journey on being a writer. I was doing some research on you, and you started writing as a child.
Yes. So at the age of 8, I actually wrote a short story for my second grade teacher. My mom loved it. That's that backstory on that. Following that, I did journaling as a child, as a way of just getting my thoughts out, my emotions out, things of that nature. I did poems as a teenager, and I've always wanted to write. It's always kind of been inside of me. I just didn't know how to make it happen at the time. I was a huge fan of Sister Soldier. My favorite author is Deja King, and I really looked up to them and always, had that passion of writing. So it started at the age of 8. I remember my mom tells the story. I tell this story all the time. That's the starting story of my writing career. It's a story about crayons in a crayon box.
Wow.
But that's where it started. That's where my love. I've always been a reader. I've loved reading as a young child. And then growing up, my mom required that I would read stories over the summer and write her small summaries on them. So writing has always been something that I've done.
That's amazing that your mom did that. Was she a huge influence, even now, just to keep you motivated to follow your dream to be a writer?
Yeah, she's always in my ear. So what are y'all working on now? When's that next story coming out? She's super proud, even though I don't allow her to read my stories just because of the content. But she is super proud. And every time we're getting ready to release a new, I don't let my mom read any of my stories. However, whenever I'm getting ready to release something new, she's definitely behind it 100%. She tells whoever will listen. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's nice. Now, does she ever get the itch to say, "Hey, please let me listen. Please let me read some of the story"?
No, we typically I'll tell her kind of the summary of what it's about, But as far as like reading the detail of it, I've never. She has actually one of the very first story that I released. She has it. It's on her dresser. It's like her keepsake, but she has not read it in detail. I think she read like a page or two and was like, "Okay, you're right. I'm not about to do this." So I'll summarize it for her in like the cute, sweet version. But as for my dad's not allowed to read it either, and he's like so upset. But I'm like, we can't do this.
Right, I understand. So I was looking through your catalog of books, and you have what I counted was 7 novels, not counting the new one that's coming out. Let's start off with the very first one, and I noticed that you were a self published author.
Yes.
So what, like, okay, so when you became an adult and you finally said, "Hey, I'm ready to write this book," I'm ready to follow my heart, my dreams. What were the steps for you to get your story together, the vision that you wanted for the first book, and how did you manage to become self-published?
Okay, so the first book, it literally happened just like this. Like I have been saying for 10 years now, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And all of my girlfriends and myself are going through different crazy relationship situations. And I will always joke and say, you know what, I could put this in a book. And so finally, I was at work one day and I was talking to my friends. And I said, you guys, I want to write a story. I want to tell this story about this girl named Decree. And literally, that's how that character came about. Like, we're going to call her Cree for short. And I want to write this story. And they're like, okay, let's do it. Let's write the story. And literally that night, I went home, opened a document on my desktop. I didn't even have a laptop at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I didn't have a need for it. Like I had a work laptop, and we've always had a desktop from when I was in college. So came home, opened the document on on my desktop, and just started writing. Literally during the process of writing the book, the process of writing Every Goodbye and Always Forever Part 1 took a total of 2 weeks to just write, because in that time frame, I was writing every day, all day. I was writing from my phone. I was writing while I was at work. Don't they I let them know after the fact. I was writing at home, like whenever I could, I was writing. So the process of writing the book took 2 weeks. But during that process, I also had to do a lot of research on what self-publishing looked like, because I didn't have any experience from that side of it. So I looked into a couple of things. I looked into a couple of websites. I started with CreateSpace, which is the like self-publishing platform that was available prior to Amazon buying them out.
Mm.
It was a very easy, I'm not gonna say a very easy process. But they do allow like step by step instructions. So if you can sit
Okay.
there and just follow the instructions, you can get it. Amazon now, Kindle is what I self publish through now. They have a platform that's like, yeah, so I'm using Amazon and Kindle. And they literally give you like play by play on everything that you need, the formatting and everything of that nature. My sister does all of my editing, so I wrote Every Goodbye and Always Forever August 11th. I started it, and by October, the book was ready to be released.
Oh, wow. So it took you like about 2 months to write it. What's the process like once? Okay, so break down the process. So you write the book, and then that's when you go to the next step to follow like the tips for self-publishing.
Yes, so writing the book, like I said, that took 2 weeks. It varies
Mm-hmm.
each book though, but for whatever reason, Every Goodbye just flowed. It was like day after day, it just came to me. So it
Mm.
took 2 weeks to write that book. And then once we were done, we immediately started editing. And we did like 4 or 5 rounds of edits on that particular book.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're done with your editing, I did my copyright. I sent out for my cover, and getting a cover depends on like what you're looking for. I was able to contract out with this guy named Mario at the time. That's who I was using for my covers. You just could find anybody, like Fiverr has them, or I found Mario off of Facebook. So you just, just look around, do your research. That's what I did. I researched different people. I started following authors as soon as I decided that I wanted to do it. I started following authors in that genre that I chose to write in. And then I found people that was willing to, that did the work that I needed. So got my cover. Then following the cover, you add the information to create space, upload it as a document, upload your cover as a document, pick your price. It's very like plug in information. It's very simple.
Okay, it sounds like a pretty, and I don't want to like diminish your work, but it does sound like a simple process. That's good to know. Like,
I
because I
mean,
guess,
the process of like plugging it in itself is not as difficult as it seems coming off. Now, the process of like writing it and getting the information and getting the characters in line and that story together, that's a whole different thing. But as far as like actually self-publishing the book, once you have it edited, once you have that final draft and you're ready to upload it, it's not, that portion of it is not a complex thing. All you have to do is follow the outline that's on Kindle.
wow, that's amazing. And I think I'm glad that you broke it down that it's not like a very difficult process because, I'm sure there's going to be some people that listens and that's one of their dreams. I know that's one of my things on my bucket list is to write a book. So that's pretty cool to hear that it's not, this extremely difficult process. So
Mm-mm.
with your books, and I know like you have, the catalog of 7 books so far, and then there's the new one you have coming out. And I noticed in the catalog you also had a Broken Empire series. So can you
Mm-hmm.
go and just take us down the list of all your books and summarize them? How did you come up with the ideas? I know you talked about the first one, but let's talk about your whole catalog of books.
Okay, so Every Goodbye and Always Forever is a story of a young girl who lives. The story of Every Goodbye and Always Forever is a story of a young girl who she's from New Orleans. She lives here. She grew up here. The story takes place here, and she moves to Florida to get away from her ex boyfriend, who is like drama filled. They have secrets between the two of them, and she needs to get away from him for her safety. So she moves to Florida. She's there for 6 years. She kind of gets her life back together, gets her life on track, and she comes back home. She comes back home and she falls in love with a new guy. But in the process of like building that relationship, her ex boyfriend resurfaces. And so does all of the lies and secrets that was centered around them. So that story plays out on a story of love and loyalty.
Do you
And in the
feel that,
end,
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
So, do you feel like most of your books is that what you like? Are all the books centered in New Orleans in your hometown?
No. No. So Family Affair is my second story. It's a standalone novel and it takes place in Atlanta. And
Okay.
then that one's a story of twin brothers. One is a lawyer and one is in the streets. And the brother that's in the streets kind of have to like shield his image to protect his twin brother. And there's a female that the lawyer brother begins to date that causes confusion and questions the loyalty of the brothers, and they have to determine if they're going to continue to have each other back like they've been doing throughout their adult life, or if they're going to turn on each other. And in the end, ultimately, it causes someone to lose their life.
Oh,
um
wow.
yeah, that one's my absolute favorite story. I love that character. Kingston is awesome. Oh my goodness. If I had to recommend any of my stories, it would definitely always be that
Oh,
one.
wow. Wow.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love everything about that story.
So, what
Um,
makes you have like particular connections to each books? Are the books kind of like your kids? Like I feel like when people have multiple kids, there's things within each child that they kind of connect to. Do you have that type of connection with your books?
yeah, I could definitely see that. Like Every Goodbye and Always Forever is my baby. When I started that book, I was actually going through like series, a serious situation of like depression. I had just lost a cousin to suicide, so it was like an outlet for me. Like even though I had always wanted to write, at that moment, deciding to write was driven behind that feeling of depression and sadness. So that's my baby. That's a personal favorite of mine for different reasons that I sometimes don't share. But A Family Affair is my favorite because my character, Kingston, is really raw. He says whatever comes to mind. He's funny. He's just real in a different way. So for that, I just love that character. Like he was different. While writing the book, I laughed often. It made me just, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process of just writing that book. And like, I looked forward to sitting down and writing his chapters. So that was different. And then A Beautiful Symphony is a story of, it's more of a romance, urban fiction, I guess you could say. Symphony was married. She had been married for 10 years and she catered to her husband. She loved everything about him, all of his. Okay, so Broken Empire. That one is a 3-part series. It's a story. It's an interesting, cute little drama filled story. It's a story of a girl who meets a guy who is like the king of his drug empire. And throughout the story, it plays out that he his enemy's daughter. And so the story is that the guy falls in love with his enemy's daughter. Along the way, it seems as if but by the end of the story, it turns out to be not what he expected. I'll just say that because I don't want to give too much of the story away. So
Okay.
that one is like a close second favorite to Kingston. There's a character in there, Jewels. He's very entertaining as well. Each of my stories, they play a different role. So to answer your question, yes, they are all significant to me for different reasons. I do have a love for them for different reasons, and they each like are important to me or special to me for different reasons and in a different way.
Okay, okay. Now, with the series, what made you decide to do like a 3-part series? Because that's a 3-part book series, right? Broken Empire.
Yes.
Okay.
So as a writer, I wanted to challenge myself. When I first started writing, and in doing my research, you'll find out once you start researching novels and the novellas and what the difference are, there was like a focus for me. It may not be that way for most writers, but for me, being a new author at the time, I focused and worried a lot
Mm-hmm.
about word counts. And I struggled to get the word count that I wanted for Every Goodbye Noise Forever. And when I say word counts, I'm talking like 50 to 60,000 words in a
Mm-hmm.
document.
Mm-hmm.
So, needless to say, by the time that I got ready to write Broken Empire, I was kind of past that stage as a writer, and now I wanted to challenge myself because now I knew I could give my readers 60,000 words easily. And then as I started writing the story, it just got really great. I guess you could say that by the time I got to the second part of it, I had so much left to tell that it had no choice but to be a 3-part series. So it started out with the intention of being 2 parts, but like I said, by the time we got halfway through the second part, I still had a lot of story left that I wanted to include. So I had to make it a 3-part series.
Do you have any aspirations of seeing your books on film in the future or on a play format?
I do. I definitely do. My goal when it's all said and done is to have one of my books to be a movie. That's my end goal. I pray on it. I'm manifesting over it, and it's going to happen. I don't know when, but it will.
Yeah, you definitely got to claim it because that would be amazing. Because I know that's how,
Yeah,
a lot of book adaptations, they end up on film or they end up in a play format. So that would definitely be a great thing to do. So I
yeah.
know that you have a new book coming out and it's called A Case of Injustice. So tell me the background, how you thought of the idea, when can we expect it to be released? So, just break down everything about this new book.
So, A Case of Injustice is an amazing story. It's a story about two young individuals. I started this story. Let me first say, I started this story last year. There was a time frame. I can't remember exactly who it was. Unfortunately, it happens so often. But in the media, there was the brutality of our young Black men by police officers. And it bothered me. I have a Black son, I have a Black husband, I have nephews, I have cousins. It really, of course, it's sitting on all of our hearts. It bothered me. So I
Right.
began, my husband said, I was at a phase where I wanted to write something different. I didn't want any major drug dealers or anything like that in my story. I just wanted it to be altogether different. And my husband was like, this is an important topic. You need to, touch on it. So I started the story last year. And so one of my characters, Kase, actually loses his brother suddenly in that tragic way. On the flip side of that, Savannah is fighting her situation with her mom. So Savannah was molested as a child, and her mom was trying to protect her. So they are both fighting their own individual cases for whatever reason. And we've seen this before. We've seen it with our young girls. We've seen that with our young boys in some cases. And we've constantly seen young Black men being gunned down or by police brutality. So the story is real. You know what I'm saying? It's a real story. It's not necessarily my story, but it's somebody's story.
Right.
And Savannah suffers through depression as she grows up, which plays on her confidence and her self-esteem. And she doesn't have much family, and Kase is fighting his own demons, and they end up crossing paths. And the story details about how, the important part of the story, what I want the readers to take away is that no matter what you go through in life, no matter what happens to you, you can overcome it, right? Like depression is real, self-esteem issues is real, mental health is real. However, although in this story they didn't seek those things to overcome it, because it's still a fictional story, even though it has real life events in it. But we can overcome those things in life. That's the ending message of it. Like, yes, it's a fictional story. It's, it's made up. I made it cute. I made the love story cute. But realistically, once we experience these things in life, regardless of what it is, it may not be the death of a brother. It may not be molestation. It could be something else. We can overcome that. That's the message that I wanted to provide the readers with.
Right.
So that's what that story is. It's more real. It's realistic. It's more of an emotional, I guess you could say, read because of the details in it. It's not graphic. I try not to make it too graphic, but it's realistic. So.
Wow. So when is that book going to be released?
That book will be released this month. I don't want to give an exact date. I'm waiting on Amazon to send out the paperback. So if all goes well, I'll have the paperbacks next week.
Okay.
So I'll be releasing next week, but I'm not going to give a date because things happen, especially in the middle of this pandemic.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say anything because my readers will be at my neck.
No, trust me, we understand, because this pandemic thing is insane. Now, with your books, are
crazy.
they all on paperback, or do you also have like ebooks? Are they just all paperback, hardback books? And
They are available
on the hardback part, but are they all paperback?
They are, yes. So all of my books are available on paperback. However, I do provide them on Amazon Kindle as an ebook, because I know there are some people that just love having that book in hand, and then there's some people that like to read on the go, like myself. I enjoy a paperback. I wish I could have a paperback while I'm lounging on the beach, not in the middle of coronavirus, but at the same time, while I'm on the go, I'm reading from my phone. So I provide both options.
Right. And I'm old school, but on the flip side, because I used to be like an avid reader, but I always had this thing for having, my paperback book or whatever. I used to love going to the bookstore, but I think books is an example of just changing the times. Not everyone just goes to their phone to see if the book is available now, or, the whole thing with Kindles. But I think something about just having a book in your hand feels great.
Yeah.
So I used to love just the smell of a new book, and it just feels amazing. Then when you're done with the book, to see like the little, creased corners, it's it's an old school thing. So
for me, I was reading. I have a bunch of books, so I started, even though I'm not reading them now, and I don't read actual physical books anymore, I kept all of the books that I've read throughout the year. I started buying books when I was like 17. So all of those books are on a bookshelf inside of my house, and I have to keep them up away from my daughter, but they're here because I still have that need for paperbacks. And there's some times where I'll be like, you know what, I'm gonna go reread this story real quick. But yeah, they're valuable to me. I didn't get rid of them. They're all still here. So I understand it both ways. And that's why I wanted to be able to provide both ways for my readers.
And I think that's a smart move. What is your advice for anyone that's listening that is an aspiring writer? What advice do you have just on how to get started, how to stay motivated, how to be creative? Like, what would you say to anyone that's listening that has some aspirations to go ahead and write that book?
My best advice is to start writing. You can't be a writer if you don't have anything on the paper. Start writing that story, get it out there. Definitely start doing your research. What works for me may not work for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So definitely look into it, research it, figure out what's the best printing, because there's other printing options. I use Amazon. There's other options out there. I can't think of the names off the top of my head. I have them written down. You could message me. I'll definitely share that information because I don't have it like right in front of me. But research, start writing, and just go for it. Like, you just got to start. To keep motivated, I noticed that on the days when I just sit down and write something, I do better than the days when I'm like, I don't feel like writing, so I'm not going to write, because then those days turn into weeks sometimes. So if you could just open your laptop and put like 500 words on a page, that's better than not putting anything. And that helps you to stay motivated. That helps me keep my juices flowing in a sense, because that means it's always on the forefront of my mind. I'm always thinking about what I need to add to this story or what could be added to this story. I know that with Every Goodbye and Always Forever, I would be sleep, literally 3:00 in the morning sleep, and will pop up with an idea that I needed to go write down. That has not been happening lately, unfortunately. But different stories bring different emotions out of you. I will say that. So definitely just keep writing, even if it's not making any sense. Write it down, because it could work at another point in the story for something else. For me, music keeps me motivated. When I'm writing, I have to listen to some type of music, depending on what scene I'm writing. If it's more of a love scene, it's going to be some R&B. If it's more of a gangster kind of scene, it's going to be some rap. But either way, that's my motivation. Like this, and then to keep giving books, keep giving my readers amazing stories that they love. That's the goal at the end of the day.
That's awesome. So what I want you to do, just put out there, let everyone listening how they can contact you, all your social media connects, and also, of course, give everyone your website and more information on how they can purchase your books.
So you can find me at on Instagram, Author_Kesh_Nicole. On Facebook, I'm Author Kesh Nicole, nothing in the middle. My website is www.keshnicole.com. I would highly recommend subscribing to the website and following me on Instagram or Facebook, because with this release, I'm planning to do some contests, some giveaways, some free things. And I think that's going to be super awesome. So those details are coming later this week, once I definitely get that confirmation that the books are on their way. And we're going to have fun. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do some questions. We're going to do some trivia. It's going to be amazing. So www.keshnicole.com. You can subscribe and get information about what's coming next, what new releases is coming, when we can go back outside. I do events throughout the city. So where I'll be is important. And follow me Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. And everyone heard that. And I want to spell it out for you guys as Kesh. So just go ahead and follow her on IG. Definitely look into her books. They sound extremely interesting. And like she said, she's going to have some free giveaways. And hopefully, as far as my locals, once this pandemic is over, we can look forward to some in-person events. And like I said, I wish you all the best. Thank you for listening to the Q Chat podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Queen's Arrogance LLC. Our company website is www.goqueen.com.